Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Fawad, the Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacy, Bard University of Science and Technology. Welcome to the course of Pharmacology and Therapeutic. Today we will discuss about an antibiotic drug which is chloramphenicol. Okay. Outlines. In today's lecture, we will discuss the following contents one by one, like the chloramphenicol history, general properties, its mechanism of action, antibacterial spectrum, resistance, pharmacokinetic properties of chloramphenicol, therapeutic uses, and adverse effects, drug interactions of the chloramphenicol. Lecture outcomes. After watching and listening this, the student will know about the chloramphenicol mechanism of action, its mechanism of resistance, the pharmacokinetic properties of the chloramphenicol, adverse effect, drug interactions, and clinical uses based upon its spectrum. Okay. Basic structure of the chloramphenicol, like history. Chloramphenicol is basically produced by Streptomycin vengula, discovered by the Ehrlich at 1947. It contains the nitrobenzene moiety. Nitrobenzene moiety. It is a derivative of dichloroacetic acid, chloromycetin. So dichloroacetic acid and chloromycetin, synthesized by the birds in 1948. General properties. Chloramphenicol is basically a small molecule, so it can penetrate in all tissues, including blood-brain barrier. It's a neutral, stable compound. Can stand at boiling can stand boiling at 100 degrees centigrade for more than 20 minutes. Extremely bitter in taste. So it's pure base sparing soluble in the water, like in the ratio of 1 to 1 part of chloramphenicol is soluble in 250 part of the water, but soluble in alcohol and organic solvents. It has succinate glycinate salt, which is water soluble. Mechanism of action. Chloramphenicol basically diffuses through the bacterial cell wall and reversibly bind to the bacterial 50S ribosomal subunit. The binding interferes with the peptidyl transferase activity, which prevent transfer of amino acid to the growing peptide chain and block the peptide bond formation. Basically inhibit the peptidyl transferase activity and prevent the transfer of amino acid. Right. This is another diagram. Chloramphenicol inhibit peptidyl transferase enzyme. High level may also inhibit the mitochondrial protein synthesis. So this is the chloramphenicol inhibit the peptide transferase, and ultimately the number of amino acids addition is also prevented, and ultimately the peptide bond formation is disturbed. This is the chloramphenicol. Addition of the amino acids are basically blocked because of the inhibition of the peptidyl transferase enzyme. Okay, spectrum. It has a wide range of the gram-positive and gram-negative microorganism, including rickettsia and mycoplasma. This is basically a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Chloramphenicol is a broad-spectrum antibiotic. So anaerobes, including the bacteria Pharyngales and Clostridia, also activity against H. influenza and Neisseria meningitis. It also has activity against Salmonella typhi and Paratyphi, used in typhoid and paratyphoid infections. Used in the Bordetella pertussis, Brucella chlamydia, rickettsia infection. Bacteriostatic for most microorganisms. Bactericidal for H. influenza, Neisseria meningitis, and some other strains of the bacteroides. So it also not active against the Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Chlamydia, Mycobacterium, and Protozoa. They are not effective against these organisms like Pseudomonas, Chlamydia, Mycobacterium, and hence they not effective against the infection caused by these microorganisms. Bacterial resistance. Mutation decrease permeability to the drug. Impair permeability of the drug. Plasmid mediated, like it's like normally cholinesterase transferase enzyme. There is plasmid mediated resistance. Kinetic properties. Absorption. They are present in basically in the basic form. They have ester prodrugs like palmitate, succinate, and glycinate. Prodrugs of the chloramphenicol are normally present. Distribution. It penetrates all the tissues, including the CNS. It has a protein binding up to 30 to 50%. Elimination half-life is 2 hours. Highest concentration in the liver and kidney have highest concentration, and lowest in the brain and CSF. Also found in the pleural, ascitic fluid, saliva, milk, aqueous, and vitreous humors. Metabolism. It undergoes glucuronidation and reduction to aryl amines. Normally, basically, it is metabolized by the phase 2 conjugation reaction, usually by the glucuronidation. Undergoes entire hepatic cycling. Excretion. 10% of the dose are excreted by by glomerular filtration in the inactive form. 90% are excreted by the tubular secretion in inactive metabolites. Also secreted in the breast milk. Small fraction of the active is also excreted in the bile. Clearance mostly hepatic. More clearance is mostly through hepatic. Uses. A reversal for the severe life-threatening infection resistant to the other drug. Bacterial meningitis caused by the H. influenza resistant to other drug. Because it is a broad spectrum drug, normally it is reserved for the life-threatening infection which are resistant to most of other drugs. Like in case of the bacterial meningitis, like for example caused by the H. influenza, most of the drug like penicillin, cephalosporins, and they are resistant, and we use chloramphenicol in that case. Pneumonia, epiglottitis, tracheitis, laryngitis. caused by the H influenza, resistant to other drugs, like for example, resistant to ampicillin. Normally, H influenza produce high resistance toward the penicillins, the extended spectrum penicillins, for example, ampicillin. Brain abscess like gram-negative aerobes or mixed infections. Typhoid and paratyphoid fever. Normally, chloramphenicol is used as drug of choice in typhoid and paratyphoid fevers. Anaerobic infection, serious intra-abdominal infection, and brain abscess, like for example in dental infection, anaerobic infection. Meningococcal and pneumococcal infection in penicillin sensitive and penicillin resistance. So they are normally used in the when the other drugs are resistant toward some infection, especially in this case like meningococcal and pneumococcal infection. Sepsis, bacteriocides and gram-negative in combination with aminoglycoside are normally preferred in sepsis. Intraocular and conjunctivitis infection, cystic fibrosis and brucellosis infection, they are mostly chlorphenicol is used. Adverse effect. They have hematological adverse effect, like which is basically idiosyncratic, like no specific reason is known, or it may be due to the dose dependent. Normally, the chloramphenicol causes acute hemolytic anemia. Okay, in GIT, in gastrointestinal GIT, so it causes diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. It causes rash and severe allergic reaction, hypersensitivity reaction. One of the known chloramphenicol is known for one of the specific adverse effect, which is known as the gray baby syndrome. What is the gray baby syndrome? It is a syndrome due to the toxicity of antibiotic chloramphenicol in the newborn, especially the premature newborn, because they lack the necessary liver enzyme to metabolize this drug. Okay, so this is why they mostly cause its toxicity specifically in the newborn or the premature newborn babies because of the specific enzyme required, because of the lack of that enzyme, liver enzyme, which is responsible to metabolize this drug chloramphenicol. That's why chloramphenicol therefore usually not given contraindicated to the newborns and the premature babies. So it is normally characterized by Asian grey color, abdominal distension, vomiting, cyanosis, circulatory collapse, and even death may occur, especially in the premature newborn babies, if a chloramphenicol is given to that specific patient. Drug interaction. Basically, probenecid decrease the plasma concentration of the chloramphenicol. Atropobelladonna and chlorpromazine also delay its absorption. So, belladonna and chlorpromazine have drug interaction with the chloramphenicol by decreasing its absorption. So, chloramphenicol also increases the plasma concentration and the elimination half-life of the phenytoin, the warfarin, the chloropramide, telbutamide. So, it also antagonizes the bacterial action of penicillins, bactericidal action of the penicillins and aminoglycoside. The references